Trump addressed Congress and the American people tonight, laying out in broad and generally more optimistic terms than he had in the past his goals for the nation.
Yeah, the president touched on all of his major campaign promises in a tone more serious and a delivery much more on script than the freewheeling speeches which defined his campaign. And before the speech, he made some big news suggesting that he is open to compromise on immigration reform. KCAL 9 political reporter Bryan joins us now with highlights of the president's speech and reaction to it. Dave?
Yeah, the LA Times said this may have been his most traditional political speech since he entered public life decades ago. President Trump presented himself tonight as a reasonable presidential leader speaking to a joint session of Congress and outlining his programs and priorities. And at least for a while, this will be the defining speech of his administration, appealing to Republicans and occasionally even to Democrats, calling for unity.
Recent threats targeting Jewish community centers and vandalism of Jewish cemeteries, as well as last week's shooting in Kansas City, remind us that while we may be a nation divided on policies, we are a country that stands united in condemning hate and evil in all of its very ugly forms.
From the very start of his hour-long address to Congress, President Donald Trump was clearly determined to reset his administration's approach after 39 days in office, although there were certainly some moments that echoed his campaign.
We will soon begin the construction of a great wall along our southern border.
Even though in many cases it was only Republicans who stood and cheered, while most Democrats sat on their hands. Following up on a statement he made earlier in the day, Mr. Trump seemed to be setting the conditions for some form of national immigration reform.
I believe that real and positive immigration reform is possible if we are guided by the well-being of American citizens. Then I believe Republicans and Democrats can work together to achieve an outcome that has eluded our country for decades.
Although later in the speech, with a swipe at the media, Mr. Trump announced creation of a Homeland Security office to track crime by immigrants and help the American victims of that crime.
The office is called VOICE, Victims of Immigration Crime Engagement. We are providing a voice to those who have been ignored by our media and silenced by special interests.
At one point, the president introduced the grieving family members of 3 Californians who he said were murdered by immigrants who were in the country illegally. But Burbank Congressman Adam Schiff, a Democrat, charged that revealed how Mr. Trump really views immigrants.
When he talked about immigrants, it was always in the context of immigrants coming to murder or rape or pillage people in the United States. The only really new initiative he announced tonight was an initiative to create an office for the victims of immigrant violence. That doesn't sound like someone who's trying to bring about a comprehensive approach to immigration reform.
We are blessed to be joined tonight by Corinne Owens, the widow of U.S. Navy Special Operator, Senior Chief William Ryan Owens.
But the most emotional moment of the night came when Mr. Trump introduced the wife of a Navy SEAL who was killed during a commando raid in Yemen. She was overwhelmed by the moment. But for much of the address, the president urged an end to the bitterness and anger that carried over from the fall campaign.
The time for small thinking is over. The time for trivial fights is behind us. From now on, America will be empowered by our aspirations, not burdened by our fears.
In the Democratic response, former Kentucky Governor Stephen Beshear charged the Republican replacement plans for Obamacare would leave more Americans without health care coverage.
So far, every Republican idea to replace the Affordable Care Act would reduce the number of Americans covered, despite your promises to the contrary. Mr. President, folks here in Kentucky expect you to keep your word, because this isn't a game. It's life and death for people.
Now, President Trump did bring up a few issues where he feels he can work with the Democrats. As we mentioned, immigration, one of them, like support for family leave programs and lower prescription drug prices as well. Mr. Trump did not get into great detail about possible immigration reform during the speech. But before the speech, he caught a lot of people off guard when he told a small group of reporters he may be open to a compromise plan that could, and we reinforce, could lead to discussions about granting status to some immigrants who are in the country illegally. So, Jeff, Lena, could be interesting to follow.
Yeah. Dave, you know, the president was even critical of his delivery of a message, or lack thereof, he said. So he delivered a message tonight. We watched this. Do you think that this could be a game changer for public opinion about him?
I think it's going to have some significant impact. Like I said in the report, President Trump definitely changed the tone of his presidency tonight. He was calm, he was presidential, he was focused on substance. And I think the speech will overall get a good reception from the public. But the real challenge for Mr. Trump will be whether he can continue that in the coming weeks, months, and years for that matter, because tonight he was addressing Congress and millions of people watching on TV. He was not addressing a rally of his core supporters. He was not hammering out an angry tweet at 3 a.m., and he was not steaming over a news media report. He had moments like this before during the campaign, but in the past, he's always returned to lashing out. So we'll just have to see, Jeff and Lena, whether this is going to really change things, you know, in the long run.
Yeah.